Incremental things. Today I want to cover about the readability in Supermemo, how easy it is for you to read and understand the text. One of the factors is actually the content, the choice of words, which will go into formulation perspective. I won't cover this. In this video, what I'm going to do is to focus on how actually is presented the text. Because Supermemo is a software, so you can modify the text super easily. So what you see in my left, this is a subset of the elements of the items that I have related to this topic. And I'm going to show what I have tried myself with A/B testing for a while. And this for a while can be several days or more than a year. It's not something that I did, in a weekend, and now I do my results. No, it's been in the long run. So, I'm going to cover the typographic aspects that affects readability. Font size. In my case, I don't know the size in pixels because I use Supermemo built-in and it's by points. In CSS will be PT instead of PX. And I use 18. The font I use Noto Sans. Before I used Noto Sans, the Chinese one, simplified Chinese, and that's because I use Chinese in my collection. So I wanted to cover everything in one single font. It was for me. If you're using multiple languages, it's very likely that Noto Fonts is a good choice for you. It contains a lot of scripts, and you have so many options. Thin, extra light, I'm assuming, condensed, semi-condensed, extra condensed, bold. So you have combinations of oblique, italics, bold, and then with the different layers. Then condensed, how close the characters are to each other. So many options, it's ridiculous. Feel free to choose and try what works best for you. This is for items, question and answer. Then you may have seen that in the contents, I use a different size and even a different font. The contents is the contents window. So this is especially useful for reading. So instead of, I started with the items because it's plain text, it's easier to see. If I go to a topic, let's say this one, control in psychology, this is how it looks. Now I see that this looks bigger than I usually read. That's because I use my laptop, which has a 15-inch screen. And the one that I'm recording now is 24-inch screen. It's much bigger, but it's the same resolution. The width is the same resolution. So I see everything bigger. So that also depends on the device you're watching this video and the device you will be using Supermemo with. So trial and error is the best thing you can do. You may have seen here what happens. All of the color of the highlight doesn't break the lines. What I mean by that? Let's go and edit the file. By the way, I'm using a backup and I did on purpose, so it's not exactly the last one because I wanted to do some edits. Line height, it's 1.4. If I put 1.6, which is what I use myself, now there's more space between the lines. And do you see that now if I select the text, I still have a color break of the selection? I want that. It may sound ridiculous, but especially when you use the, like this, you use the, instead of the mouse, you use the keyboard, it's a lot easier. It's one until here, whatever that may be. Line height. Font size, 18. Points, not pixels, but points. I never use points for this. Then in this backup, I still had the Chinese font. So now what I do is I have this one. Because I don't need that many characters because I no longer use Chinese, basically. Then the background color. And the color, it's not exactly black over white. It's a shade of gray and it's still not black. It's very close to black. It will be 000. So the contrast is not as big. So what I did is that I had different templates. And so let me do this, and I suggest you to do the same. A/B testing. Is in the article picture, let's do this. And the article, the other one, the article, keep it untouched. After a while, let's see if there is some difference of what you perceive. Because sometimes what I realized, that is, a golden nugget, but it's quite obvious, is that you don't want what looks best, the eye candy, the, oh wow, this is so beautiful to look at. No, you don't want that. You want A, this is easy to read and it creates us the least amount of fatigue as possible. So I can read for hours and hours, even in the dark, and don't affect my eye strain. I want that. I don't like this. This is way too big. Like 12 lines and that's it, right? I need a lot of scrolling. Well, as a side effect, this is helping you to be more incremental. Because it's more likely that you will stop doing the repetition before you get to the end of what's seen in the element before you start scrolling. Wow, that's very unlikely that the start of the sentence is the same word for 5 times in a row. Wow. If I go to a different one, like this. What I have done many years ago is to color the headings. If we go back to the file, I have different sizes, but the importance is that they have different colors. That is in this backup. I no longer do this. So instead of the background color, is the color. Like this. Now if I refresh, that's how it looks now. So instead of having white and then the background is nothing, and I get just the color. Now I use this. It's subtle, because then I realized, yeah, I have horizontal lines. It's way too much, and I prefer this. That is the second header. And I did like subsets. I use Supermemo for 5 hours in a single day when I had the time to do so, and with this intention. Let me go just topics. I only want to read. I'm not going to do any repetition at all. And for a week, I created elements. I created items, yes, but I have reviewed none of them. I only did topics, because I wanted to prove this. Early in the morning, in the balcony with a lot of sunlight to my screen, dark at night for hours, different scenarios. And this, for me, is what works best. I'm not telling you to do the same and use the same styling as I do. I'm suggesting you to find what works best for you. But work best is not what looks best. It's not the same thing. Because for me, what looks best is white over black, the dark mode. I mean, it doesn't pain me, but it's I have let's say a cognitive dissonance, a hard time accepting that what creates less fatigue for me is light mode. I have a video about the light mode that I use now. Now I'm using the dark mode in the layout, in the theme. Let's check this out. It's not that I constantly change this theme. It's because of a bug in Supermemo 19. You carry over the theme of the previous open. So every time that I work with backups, all of my backups are still in dark mode. So I trigger this bug. So this is how it looks now for me. The character spacing, I do this through the font, because in this case, Google Noto already has the condensed, regular, If you use a font that doesn't have this, which is what's more likely to happen, you will have to use CSS for this. Another one that I do is the size, so how wide it is. So I don't use images that often now. So what I could do is to increase the width, right? So I can fit in more text. But I don't want that. Why? Precisely because I want to limit the saccade, the movement of the eye. When you move tuk, 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 like this, you want to minimize this effort. So you increase the readability. So sometimes it looks weird like this, that why do you have a line break here and you start with a double semicolon? What is this? It's just my convention. Sometimes I will have it like this. That means that this text is not required for answering the question. It's extra information in case I forget the question or I don't understand the context. It's, oh yeah, that was the reason I made it, or whatever that may be. So I have this. Sometimes I have it like this, with a line break. It's good for me, because I will be reading this. And since I start the line with my convention, I already know, okay, since I already got it, I will skip it. It may look like a very small detail, but if you do 600 repetitions, 400 repetitions, is when you notice that. If I do 16, those are just, this is dummy because it's just by the videos. But look at that, 500, 500 for the items. But what about the topics? 200, 400, 600, 300, 400, 300, and so on. 300 here, and 400. Those are a lot of repetitions. So if you have this degree of repetitions, which doesn't have to be a lot of time, because the repetitions can be just a sentence or 2 sentences long, this is when it takes into effect. For me, what works best is this. Even though for me, it doesn't look as good. Now that when I edit videos, or I see this in my YouTube channel, is, I don't like it. Aesthetically, it doesn't look as good, but I prioritize the readability over aesthetics. I also remember that I use plain text for items, and I have been using plain text for, I don't know, I will drop the link of the video, but I think it's more than 2 years already, or even longer than that. I have been using plain text items longer than I didn't. And it is the best, one of the best decisions I have done. It increases readability a lot. And then, just to plant the seed, because this is already out of the scope of this video, is the other aspect is how you actually write the questions. In this case, it's not even a question, but they know it's a question, it's an item. So basically, I have close deletions. That means that eventually I will have this in my text. In plain text, by the way. But hey, this is not present, then I will have a question mark at the end. Hey, I don't have a question mark nor a close deletion. Then I know it's language. That what is the name of this? Like this, if we do it now, this is how I will see it. The ease with which a reader can understand a written text. So now I know, by the lack of conventions, it's language. Before here, I had a ton of emoji that, hey, this is a language item. Hey, the language is English in this case. And the M with a square, that, hey, it's about, I'm asking a meaning for this. And I realized, you know what? For what I use the most, I can make it obvious. So when no convention is present, means something already. The lack of convention is a convention in this case. And this is a lot easier for me. When I start reading, a lot less fatigue. If you do 500 repetitions in a single day, you will know what I'm talking about. Those are my 2 cents. Let me know your opinion, your strategy, what you use, what you have done. I may try it as well. because what I seek is the truth. I don't seek the, I like this, or this is the best, or this is the default. What's almost guaranteed is that the defaults from Supermemo are very far from the optimal experience. Nothing more to add today, and see you incrementally.